the ability for projects to address scaling was, as Rohan mentioned, lots of folks had a really solid understanding of dividing out the state, maybe sharding it, adding throughput through smaller proof sizes, state channels. There were a number of really interesting approaches, but we really felt like they were missing the meat of it. They were missing what we thought was really cool, and that was the ability for contracts to interoperate on top of each other. And so we took a fundamentally different approach and thought about what would it take for there to be a decentralized computation network where financial use cases were one component of that, but where it really was about the smart contracts and the computation first. And when we approached the problem that way, we really reevaluated the way the systems were coming to consensus and came to the insight that if you come to consensus on the inputs, the deterministic outputs are knowable. Everything once the inputs are set is observable by other participants in the network. And so you really can, as Rohan alluded to in his last presentation, have more decentralization, more participation, and more participants in the areas that are going to contribute to the most security of the network, like participating in the core consensus algorithm. And you can exploit great deals of performance in the deterministic areas of the process without making compromises about security or decentralization. And so that really was the first thing on our roadmap. We built out this multi-node architecture. We built out an MVP. It took the team of about 10 of us 4 months, and we were able to prove out that it really was a faster approach to divide consensus and compute in this way. It was efficient. There was the number of redundant tasks had dropped significantly, and we really were we were quite happy not only with the performance improvements that garnered for the system, but the transition to proof of stake for efficiency reasons and impact on the environment wasn't something that was lost on us. And so we really were quite happy with the efficiency gains that were added to with this. And most importantly, it was secure. And so we really proved out that having the nodes interact with each other in the way that they did, and the balance of concerns and the ways in which they were checking each other's results was going to, in fact, ensure that there was enough checks and balances in the system to maintain security while not compromising the scale of the system and the speed of it. And so after building out that MVP, we of course needed to share our results with all of you. And so we put them into 3 different technical papers. The first one was around dividing consensus and compute and how that idea works. The second was around our use of HotStuff, a consensus algorithm that ensures message complexity scales linearly, which for anyone who's worked in these systems knows that communication really can be the bane of a decentralized network. And the HotStuff paper has been shown to scale to 200 or even 300 nodes. And we felt very strongly that that level of participation was important to the core consensus process. And so Flow really is using the state of the art in what it means for participating in the real security and decentralization of the network. The third technical paper that we put out was got some good attention and feedback from all of you, which is something we really appreciate. There's actually a revision of that paper coming out pretty shortly here that we're excited to share with you. But the third paper, it discusses our mitigation of the verifier's dilemma, SPOCs. So specialized proof of confidential knowledge is what that lovely acronym stands for. And it's a unique scheme for proving that 2 independent actors check the same input. They absolutely both checked it, and that they both came to the same result. And so that, of course, is a really important component for ensuring that the system is fast and accurate. And so that was phase 1. That was phase 1 of the roadmap that took place from about May of last year over the course of the summer. And it was really about answering the question of how do we make it as easy as possible for developers to build for a single community, to ship on a single shared state without adding complexity and cost. And then we moved over to actual computations. So the smart contracts on Ethereum absolutely paved a new wave of innovation, and we wanted to make it as easy and intuitive and stress-free as possible for developers to program with real value. Deet will discuss our decision to build out a new resource-oriented programming language in his talk in a little bit, but what we've shipped to date that I really want to highlight is a couple different things we've shared with all of you. So the first, of course, is the standard implementations for fungible and non-fungible token standards, so the cadence equivalents of ERC 20 and ERC 721. With that, we put out a web-based development environment to play with these standards and other Cadence features. We call it the playground. We hope to see you in the community. There's been a couple Cadence Cups testing out what you can do there, and folks are having a lot of fun with it. The third thing we put out was an emulated version of the Flow blockchain, so you can actually deploy contracts here locally, submit transactions to them. It's a really helpful testing environment, and it gives you the feel of deploying against the real blockchain without having to run against the actual testnet. And then the fourth thing that we've put out quite recently was the VS Code extension. So a more complete development toolkit for all of you that are excited to build dApps, and our community has really been loving it. And then of course, the last question for us as the usability people is, well, how are you going to onboard users? So just last week, the Flow client library was released as an opinionated implementation of our JavaScript SDK. It makes it really easy to onboard users without dragging them through key management the very first time around. So it's a tool for you as a developer to map user IDs to Flow addresses. And it makes it really easy for you to transition a user from an off-chain to on-chain account when they're ready. It's incredibly straightforward to integrate with. As many of you probably know, integrating with multiple wallets can be quite challenging. And so we've made it as easy as possible to integrate with a single interface that'll expose a number of wallets to you and your users, including, of course, Fortmatic and Magic from Sean Lee, who will talk after this. And so with all of that under our belts, what's next? Beyond just shipping the network, which I'll speak about in a moment, there are 3 priorities for us in the coming year to make sure that the ecosystem around Flow can really flourish. So first, of course, is enabling participation through community validator participation. The protocol, as I've mentioned, is absolutely designed for participation in the core components, and that's something that we're going to be onboarding more of you to in the coming weeks even. And epochs is the term that we use for adding the logic of removing that and adding validators to the protocol state. So that's also something that'll be coming up this summer. Onboarding people to the next generation of software is really about making it as easy as possible for you to bring your users into these experiences. And so onboarding your own users, your family, your friends via methods that they're comfortable with, that they're familiar with, like fiat on-ramps and access to tokens that are backed one-to-one with USD is something we think is really important, and something that the protocol will support very soon after we release it in a short while. Can't wait to tell you more about it. And that's something that was really important to us for ensuring that you could focus, you and the community and everyone else who's building here has the opportunity to really focus on building. And then of course, Cadence. So Deet will, again, he'll chat about this a little bit more, but there's some areas that we're really excited about, including static analysis of transactions so that it's easy for user agents to see what they're signing and show that to their users. Extensibility, so the idea that contracts are talking to each other and how we make that really easy. Exposing entropy, so there's a random beacon built directly into Flow, and it'll be available to the runtime. It's something you can use when you're building out applications that require randomness. And upgradable contracts. As anyone who's ever built a smart contract knows, trying to get it right the first time is nearly impossible. So we're going to make that available to you right off the bat. And then, of course, the testnet. So there is a testnet available if you join the community. We're onboarding folks one by one, and we'll share it more publicly very shortly. But it's really about shipping community betas and your beta experiences alongside our own. We are currently in the process of building a number of experiences that Katie will allude to, and it's really important to us that we're all part of this iteration process. Everyone at Consensus, I know, has had the experience of trying to explain to their families why they're in this space, why they're doing what they're doing, why it's not Bitcoin, but why Bitcoin was really important, and going through that whole historical discussion. And we really feel strongly that the only way that all of us are going to rise the tide for all boats and make these experiences in this technology accessible to the masses is giving really constructive feedback to each other. So our beta is your beta. Our testnet is absolutely under development. It's something that will be iterating on over the course of the entire summer. It's something we want to share with all of you as soon as possible. So like I said, please join the community so we can onboard you to it. And we've also recently open sourced as the Flow and Flowgo and JavaScript SDKs. So the ability to build great experiences over the summer and be part of the iteration process that we'll be going through is available to you right now. The thought I want to leave you with is that while Flow has come a long way, I think we all have thought deeply about what it means to make this technology accessible to all. And there's a long way to go, but we're really excited for more of you to join us in that journey. So thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.